What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic start to your week. Looking like it's the 14th of December, about to round out 2021, sneaking up on that 2022 pretty quick, which means, that's right, guys, Direct Connection will be coming back 2022, and we're already starting to get some teasers as far as what is going to be available out there. Now, what I wanted to do is talk to you guys about what some of these stages look like, what some of the rumored costs are to be, and really, more to the point, what are you getting for the money that you're spending? And as it sits right now, the only kits or stage offerings that that we know of so far are the Redeye stage upgrades. Now, no word on this as far as Hellcat, but the Redeye is definitely out there. And so what better time to start talking about it than on the eve of finding out when the power brokers are going to be announced. So for you guys that may not be in the know, the power brokers will be the dealers and the dealerships that will allow, or that Dodge is going to allow to do these modifications to. Catalyst, what's up? Nitro Crew, got the flex on Lincoln, yes. So we're going to talk about these stage kits. I'll give you my impressions on what the tunes look like, and basically how things work out. Dominic, I'll get to that as far as what they're going to be doing for the Demon. Well, let's talk about that right now. So the Demon is the exact same calibration as the Redeye. There's really no difference, as a matter of fact. We will be discussing this based on stock Redeye and stock Demon calibrations. I've been through quite a few Redeye and Demon calibrations. They are really the same. The only time they look different is when you're talking the crate PCM versus the regular 91, 93 octane setup. And to be honest with you, there literally is no difference between the Demon and the Redeye calibration. The crate calibration does have more timing thrown at it, so I can bring that up too. That's absolutely no problem. And we're going to kind of need to talk about that a little bit because of what is being said in some of the literature that I have found floating around out there that's leaked out on some forum sites and things like that. So before we get going into that, let me make sure I'm not missing anybody on the intros here. Michael Corleone is in. Good evening, Professor Mason. Good evening, Michael Corleone with the flex. I like it. Yes. So, but before I get into this, I will say that, yeah, I get it. We're talking about Redeyes. We're not talking about Hellcats, much less talking about anything naturally aspirated tonight as far as these stage kits are concerned. And really, when you start to look at how they're going to bring this technology, or at least the modifications in, they're going to take advantage of the technology that already exists, obviously. And the easiest to go after really is the Redeye. It's the most capable stock setup, along with the Demon, but that's kind of along the same lines here. The only reason why I'm saying any of this really is to illustrate the fact that you've got the Redeye with a real stout bottom end. Hellcat's got a real stout bottom end too. But you've also got a scenario where you've got twin pumps, a little bit more overhead in terms of fuel capacity. You've also got a little bit more overhead realistically in the tune itself. You can just get more out of the tune, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well and why that is. You really can eke a little bit more power out of the Redeye than you can the Hellcat, just basically because the Hellcat comes a little bit hot from the factory. So we're going to do this. I'm going to pull up the Dodge Demon crate file, and this is going to be going up against the stock Redeye as well. So we can have a little bit of fun with this. high octane. So let's start to dive into this. Like I say, we're gonna be able to, again, have some fun with all of this. Just want to get you guys in, and then we're going to get started. So, yeah. So this, I'm queuing up some of the tables for you guys. I know that Dominic had asked about the what's the difference between the Demon, like the Demon programming, that operating system, and the Redeye, and I want to show you guys. So I'm coming in here to wide open throttle base. You'll see where the little pointer is right there, bud. So wide open throttle base. And then I've got everything pulled up as a compare file. And I'm going to show you what the difference is in timing. All zeros, man. Zero means that there's literally no difference between anything on that particular tab. So just wanted to show you that, kind of give you a quick visual. That is the, if you look at the very top where it says VCM editor, it says stock Redeye tune and then Dodge Demon crate. It's at the very, very top of that. See the little black lettering up there? That way you can see exactly what I'm working on as I'm working on it. Demon crate PCM. Now, what about in high octane mode? See, I can already hear you saying, yeah, man, what's high octane? No problem. The high octane version, or the high octane table for the Redeye is the same as its normal wide open throttle. It just, that tab or that table exists in the Redeye literally as a placeholder. So what you can do is you can do the same thing, go in and run a compare file, which is what we're going to do. And everything in blue is going to show you where the Demon crate motor, or I'm sorry, the Demon crate tune has more timing across the board than the 91/93 octane tune. So everywhere where it's blue, it's just shown to be that many more degrees of timing. And really in the cells that matter, you're looking at a difference of about 8 degrees, anywhere between 5 and 8 degrees more timing on that Demon crate PCM. Now, I will say this. It's been my experience with the Demons that it takes one heck of a good fuel like E85 and throwing more timing at it than what this high octane mode is asking for by a couple of 2 to 3 degrees at least to really start to extract anything out of that Demon platform. We didn't see a whole lot of difference between, even though that you're seeing a lot of timing doesn't always equate to more power, at least not more big powers that may be what you're looking for. So that 5 to 8 degrees of timing, yeah, you're getting more power out of it, but the real difference isn't as great as you may imagine. I mean, it's substantial, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's roughly about 40 horsepower, which is what you would expect. So let's get to it. Mark is in. Ship saying, what up, Mr. R&D? I like it. Got the arm flex. Cool. Ken saying, E to B, so excited about tonight's show. Cool. Yeah, I've got a lot of fun, in-depth stuff. So let's get this party started. Come on. All right. So basically, the way that this is going to work out is the Redeye Stage 1. Part number 770725881AA. $434 is the rumored cost. This is going to include, by the way, so for 2019 Redeye combinations. Software tune includes your engine performance, or increase your engine performance to 835 horsepower at the touch of a button. But that's really not the whole thing. What you're going to have to look at for this is there is what's known as a pre-stage kit. So there's actually three different available kits that are going to be out. You have to have the pre-stage kit before you can do anything. So just the stage 1 kit isn't enough. You have to have the pre-stage. The pre-stage is going to come with basically what looks like a Trinity. It's going to have just everything that comes with that. A long story short, it comes with a 180-degree thermostat, and then it says factory tuned calibration with 5-degree spark advance. I would be willing to bet that that is a factory tuned calibration. I don't know if a 5-degree spark advance is legit, because that's not a race gas option yet. Okay, your pre-stage kit basically gets you the gadgets and the gizmos and preps the car and gets it ready for the other two upgrades. Again, I just talked about the stage 1 kit, which is the actual software tune itself. I think that that's the one that you're really looking at. This is your 91 octane tune, and that's going to get you roughly 835 horsepower. And if you notice, it's not that big of a jump in power. So to give you guys an idea of really what we're looking at, I mean, you got 807 horsepower, to 835. You know, we're not even talking 30 horsepower. And you're thinking, well, okay, I just got through spending what is basically $1,600 to get what is in essence 25 horsepower. Before you start saying, that doesn't sound like much, let's be real here. That's actually not too bad. And as a matter of fact, that $1,600 is not altogether more expensive than what you would be looking at in the aftermarket for just a tune. And although there's a lot more customization with an aftermarket tune, I'll admit to that straight away. And I would never say that this would be as aggressive as an aftermarket tune. But if you've got some room to play around with this thing, and if your pre-stage kit allows you to add timing, presumably you could add timing to where you had maybe some latitude to add race gas to this thing and maybe throw some timing at it. Although I don't really know that it'd be a great idea to have somebody with a Trinity just go, more timing means more power, and end up having problems with that. So I'm still trying to get a gist for what exactly that means. But I can tell you this, on average, the demons that we had on the dyno, they didn't really respond to timing the way that you would think. A lot of guys go, more timing, more power, throw more fuel at it. The weird thing about Hellcat platforms, Redeye platforms in general, is that in some cases, they're just not all that responsive to timing. Especially not on 91 or 93 octane. But I can tell you that no matter what the tuner thing gets you in the pre-stage or the stage 1 kit, I can assure you of one thing, and that is the knock sensor sensitivity will not be adjusted, which is to say that, yes, you might be able to add 5 degrees of timing. It won't really matter if the knock sensors pick up on anything that even remotely would qualify as a problem. It's going to start yanking timing like you wouldn't believe. So that 2 degrees of timing can end up being 4 or 5 degrees that it yanks out. If you don't have the octane to run along with it. Oh, by the way, we can get into the differences also with knock sensor sensitivity between Redeye and Demon crates, but I can tell you that all of those values are identical. You'd be surprised how many values are the same. There's a lot of differences, but there's also a lot that's the same. So let me catch up with you guys real quick, make sure I'm not missing anybody. Madera is in. What's up? Rift is in. Nitro is saying, are they going to offer packages for Hellcat like the 2016? Also, will it be smog legal in Cali? So I will answer that set of questions in reverse. They will be smog legal in California. Nothing out yet for the Hellcats. They are starting with the Redeye platform, and I am sure they are going to waterfall backwards into the Hellcat, maybe. So, one of the things about the Hellcat is that it is more aggressive per air charge figure than the Redeye is. And I'll get into that here in just a little bit. Just bear with me. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but suffice it to say that at the same air charge, in other words, if we're talking, and I'm just going to use numbers just as placeholders, so don't take this as gospel, okay? But let's say that an air charge of 1.4 grams per second of atmospheric air, at that air charge, let's say that you are looking at 15 degrees of timing with a Hellcat at X RPM. The Redeye at that same air charge value might be at 13 or 12 degrees of timing. Some of that has to do with the extra heat. Some of it has to do with a little bit of the extra parasitic load that that supercharger has, although it's a little bit insignificant, but not non-existent. So you would think, well, okay, if I throw a little bit more timing at this thing, it would at least match what the Hellcat's timing is. Strangely enough, it doesn't always equate to the car picking up power. We sat there and we're doing timing sweeps with one of these things, and it was a demon. And it's like, is this thing ever going to start responding? It's almost like, dude, is this computer working? Like, what, did it not upload or anything? Because there are a couple of times we threw a couple of degrees of timing at it, and I mean, it was just like a flat overlay. And, you know, we're going, you get all worked up and excited that you've got a demon on the dyno, and it's like, this thing is just not responding. So anyway, but we will get into that. They haven't leaked anything out for the for the Hellcat just yet. So the stage 2 kit. So we've talked about the pre-stage. We've talked about the stage 1. And the stage 1 gets you to that 835 horsepower. Oh, so let me finish my thought on that. So yeah, it's about 25 horsepower. And no, it doesn't sound like a lot until you start to realize again that from the aftermarket's point of view, you know, again, we talked about it being roughly $1,600. The aftermarket, you'd be looking at $300 for licensing, $750 for, or I'm sorry, $850 for an engine tune, and roughly $400 for the transmission tune side of it. Again, I don't know how in-depth they get into tuning, but that's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, right? So that's basically what you're looking at, basically about the same amount of money, tune for tune. The big difference is on the plus side for the Mopar stuff. For the stage kits, in this case, you have a situation where you've got, still have the warranty, which is good. And although it won't necessarily make as much power as an aftermarket tune, it's making basically about as much power as an aftermarket tune at that point in the stage kits. Downside to it is, I don't know how much latitude you're going to have on the transmission tuning side. The Trinity, you can add driver command torque, which is pedal sensitivity. That's really all you need. And if you want any more than that, transmission shift points, things like that, those may be optimized. But I can tell you that if do I have a trans tune file for one of these? Let me see something here. Let's just see. Yeah, there are some differences in the trans tune, but it's not like there are huge differences in the trans tune. In fact, some of these differences are in downshift scheduling. And this is again Redeye versus the Demon crate motor. So yeah, this is all just in downshift scheduling, and I'll save you showing you the chart because they're practically identical. I will say this, when it comes to being just a happy freaking car to drive. The Redeye is incredibly difficult to beat. Plain and simple. It's one of the things that I noticed about the Demon and the Redeye that stock Hellcat just couldn't replicate, primarily because of, well, the gearing that's in a stock Hellcat. But a 309 optioned Redeye is one of the happiest cars you could ever possibly drive. So there's that. I can't really put it into any other words. Rip is saying, I got really bad COVID right now, bro, so I'm just going to chill and watch your stream. Bro, man, get well soon. Sorry to hear that, my man. Root's asking, don't our Hellcats respond to timing a lot better with ethanol? Boy, howdy. So the magic timing number is basically the same on Echo, whether it's a Redeye, Demons, any of that. Full-on race gas, that this platform just doesn't really, no matter what the fuel quality is, it just doesn't really do much outside of, you know, aggressive timing numbers. Getting deeper into, let me pull that back up for you, man. Get out of this transmission tune and I'll show you what I'm talking about. It's more fun when I have stuff to show you guys. So I'm going to highlight an area here. This will represent what is in essence, I mean, you're really starting to make some heat. This is basically 11 pounds of boost and up, for lack of a better way to describe it. So in these areas right here, that's where throwing, what's highlighted there, when you're starting to throw, now granted, it's making that boost even further down, but it's just easier to flag an area so you can see. That's where the timing values with octane really start to make a difference, because, you know, you can go from, in this case, you know, 6,500 RPM at what is amounting to 13 and a half pounds of boost, 14 pounds of boost. You're at 10 degrees of timing. In that area, you could cheat it up on 93 to about 12. And if you were to put that thing on corn, well, shoot, now you're looking at 16, 18 degrees of timing. And so it's like 20 and below. That's kind of the happy medium area for what you'll see a lot of those tunes command in those areas. Again, and as you can see, I mean, you got your air charge on the left, you've got RPM up top. Every single one of those cells has to be accounted for. So, you know, you have to go in and there's a lot that goes into it. You know, you can just flag, add timing, things like that. Usually not a really good idea. And the thing is that 93 octane, it's got its limitations. You've got a heavy car with a lot of load that's launching, overcoming inertia, which is a big deal. On top of that, you're going to be looking at wind resistance on the big end. These things are as aerodynamic as a barn. They look the part though, and they will absolutely sting folks in the 8th mile. So that's really, you know, through 3/4 track, Mopars are hell to deal with. And the Redeye is the worst, because the Redeye / Demon, when the Redeyes come out of the hole, they are absolutely on a tear. And I mean, even Chandelier, I mean, a stock Redeye, I have to reel them in towards the top end of the track. And I would say about 9.5 times, I'm going to reel them in and get around them. But it doesn't happen all the time. And a lot of the times I am able to get around them because I'm cutting a little bit better light than they are, but it still doesn't matter because it's like this. You know, I get out on them and then they just kind of put about half a car length on me. And then the rest of the drag strip, I'm just reeling that thing in, just fighting it, trying to get it in. So, yeah, love the Redeyes. They are, to tell you the difference between driving a Redeye versus driving a Hellcat, the feel of it is like driving a big block versus a really peppy small block. They just have more torque down low. They hit harder down low. They do trail off a little bit more on the big end of the track. A lot of that is heat nannies, but also a lot of it has to do with timing. So let me get back to those stage kits. And we can always come back to them too, guys. If you have other questions or things like that, something that I'm not touching on, I'll eventually get to you in the comments. So, but I want to talk to you guys about the stage 2 kit and kind of explain a little bit about what that means. Let me catch up with you guys real quick, and then Madeire's asking, how much power can the Hellcat / Demon Hemi take before it needs block and internals? The sky's the limit. Nobody's found the limit. The only time they find limits are fuel quality issues or over revving them. But I mean, we've had 11, 12, 1300 horsepower combinations with no real issues. All that's on E85, cammed, big blower. We've hit them with nitrous like that. One of the record holding cars was a stock blower on nitrous running 850s. So take that for what it's worth, but that's also running through the 8-speed automatic. In fact, it's one of the few cars that I could say you could drive the thing around, uncork the exhaust, go run mid 850s and not have any issues with it. So I don't know. I mean, there are limits, but most of the time the limits are because of the fuel, that there you have a little bit too much timing in the thing, running a little bit lean. Another issue that you run, it's always about fueling and timing. So the blocks themselves can handle literally everything you could possibly throw at it, but the fuel quality is going to be your limiting factor. And any careless tuning along the way. If you are not familiar with looking at data logs, looking at knock sensor voltage, things like that, you could be getting away with something and then out of nowhere have a bad tank of gas and have a tune that's just way too hot to be able to reel in a bad tank of gas, which back in the day, a lot of tuners would strip a lot of the knock sensor sensitivity out of them, trying to kill what was in essence noise. Into the discussion basically goes like this: yank too much knock sensor sensitivity out of it, threw too much timing at it, revved it too high, and that's when you started having a lot of problems with Hellcats. Play within the boundaries, keep the thing between the goalposts, and you'll be just fine. But yeah, I mean, we've got guys on stock short blocks that, you know, with a Bravo package would cover 200 miles an hour in the Texas mile. So, I mean, it can definitely be done with stock short block stuff. Shift is saying, need something for us 392 guys, at least that 2020 Uconnect interface update. No kidding, right? Isn't that sweet? Or 2022 stock tune update. Isn't it more aggressive than my old 16 stock tune? That's what I've seen. That's what I've noticed. If nothing else, it's in the cam timing profile. It's a little bit more of an aggressive cam timing profile. And not for free, but I'll tell you this, the 2019 and up will absolutely run mid-11s with a passenger seat delete on a drag pack, the rest of everything else basically being stock. So it is absolutely legit. CJ is asking about the Chevy crate engine. Yeah, that's really not new news. I mean, people have been doing that with big blocks for forever. So, I mean, Chevy releasing yet another big block. It's like, I mean, throw another shrimp on the Barbie. It sounds neat, but it's just something else. Demonology exam. What's up, my man? Hopefully everything is going well in your world, getting ready for Christmas. Nitro's asking, if money wasn't a concern, would you upgrade your Hellcat to a Redeye Demon Supercharger? No, I wouldn't. The Redeye / Demon Supercharger, that 2.7, is a fun supercharger. The only downside to it is it does generate a lot of heat. So on 93 octane, probably not the best idea. Now, if I were to put my car on corn and one of those things were to just fall out of the sky and land in my lap, I wouldn't have any problem bolting the thing onto my car because I'd be running it on corn. I'd have all the heat nannies ripped out of it and, I'd go out and run a bunch of 970s and just, goof off all the way to and from the track. But the way that it sits, the 2.4, you can throw pulley at that thing and run a 2.7 or run a 9.7. It's what we basically have been doing on 93 octane with a little boostane for good measure. And that's on a timing table that's like, it's conservative. Like you could kill a degree of timing and take out the boostane and probably be okay if you're running quality 93 octane. So, you're talking about a 9-second car either way. One of them's going to require me to have to put in work. The other one's going to require me to just put in some boostane and a pulley. Probably going to go the easy route on that one. Rick is asking, do you think there's a possibility that Dodge will also do an ethanol tune with any of their stage kits? Probably not. The reason why is that ethanol is a foreign language for a lot of guys. And I know that, present company excluded, but the big issue is going to be, number one, a lot of guys don't understand how to properly live with E85. The increased frequency with oil changes, there's a lot of things with E85, if the car is allowed to sit for any real length of time, can start to eat away at parts. Even fuel pumps that are designed to run on E85, if they're exposed to E85 for long extended periods of time, can start to show signs of wear or at least performance degradation. In other words, you're commanding 80 PSI in the tune and both of your pumps singing at Mariah Carey octave levels are only able to give you 70 PSI. It's because the clearances are starting to wear down because that E85 is eating up those rotors that are in those fuel pumps. So E85 is kind of a funny thing. On one hand, it's a really good thing. It's really good stuff. But in every one of the owner's manuals that I've ever run across, which have primarily been Ford admittedly, but all of them for the flex fuel vehicles are, you have to run gasoline through them. You have to flush the system out basically. So I don't know. I doubt very seriously they'll do an E85, but they are talking about a stage 2 kit. So let's go ahead and start talking about that stage 2 kit right now. So what it basically boils down to is you get the Hellcat pulley. The Hellcat pulley is a 317 pulley. Stock pulley, I believe, is a 335, something along those lines. So the smaller pulley to spin the blower a little bit more quickly. It's not by a whole lot, though. And that, again, would kind of give you an idea as far as really what they're shooting for here. But the same idea does apply. When you have the car set in high octane mode, you're looking at 885 horsepower. When it's not engaged, you're still going to be at that 838 horsepower. So not much difference, by the way, than that 835 that we were just talking about with that software improvement. So I want you guys to think about that for just a second. 835 horsepower, 838, we're really splitting hairs there. There is no difference. I mean, that's literally a dyno variance. I'm surprised, not surprised that they would show a different number for that, but you almost have to because you got the smaller pulley. The reason why there is no difference between just a tune and a stock pulley and the 317 pulley is that on 93 octane fuel, what you're looking at is you're looking at knock resistance at this point. What they will do with that smaller pulley on 93 octane is they're going to retard timing. They may be throwing a little bit more fuel at it, which they probably should because these cars come running lean from the factory, and that's all of them, by the way. But what it is that that is the functional limit of 93 octane for the weight, the aerodynamic, the coefficient of friction, and the inherent load from gearing That is the limit for what 93 octane can safely accommodate. And when I say safely accommodate, I need you to understand that that is a number that is for really, 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 really good 93 octane without triggering the knock sensors to go into straight up crazy mode because of a bad tank of gas. So what we've shown in our discussions with Chandelier is that it is real easy to get a real bad tank of gas. And this is one of the reasons why I do so much data logging. I may have mentioned this before. I had gone through my HP tuners and I had deleted something along the lines of like 80 data logs that were primarily just me looking at fuel quality. And that's it. How boring could that possibly be? Well, it's actually kind of cool because what I get to see is when I go into wide open throttle, when I'm rolling into the throttle, you've got to remember that it's a lot of times at the drag strip. So I'm keenly interested to take a look at knock sensor voltage, make sure everything is cool. What are we looking at realistically in terms of fuel quality? And it's easy to get a bad tank of 93 octane gasoline. I've done it a few times. So I can tell you that 838 horsepower, 835 horsepower, whichever number you want to look at, the 830X number, that is your maximum pivot number for 93 octane. 91 maybe be a little bit less. The reality, though, is that you're not going to get any better than that. Kick the thing over into high octane mode, which is in essence demon mode. And it'll be a calibration that is basically the demon power plus about 40 horsepower, which makes pretty good sense. That 885 horsepower number would be roughly the equivalent of the max that I would probably suggest anybody would be expecting out of regular 100 octane Sunoco GT260 gasoline. So when you're looking at how all of that breaks down, 885 horsepower, which by the way, should sound real familiar to you guys. Because if you remember, if you hop into the way back machine, what was the horsepower on the Stellantis STLA large platform? What did they advertise that at? 895 horsepower. So there you go. Keep it up with them EVs. So that keeps us kind of in the loop as far as what to expect and what kind of numbers. By the way, so we talked about the pre-stage and the stage one kit combined roughly $1,600. The Hellcat pulley, which is in essence, it's a 317, the Hellraiser 317 pulley. And the new calibration that would go into the car, you are looking at another, basically call it $1,200 just for sake of arguments, $1,165. We're going to call it $1,200. So you got $1,600, you got $1,200 on top of that, you got $2,800 basically all in. $2,800 is not a whole lot of money to get what is in essence a street tune, a race tune, presumably some level of adjustability through your handheld gadget. And at the end of the discussion, they say, oh yeah, and you can keep your factory warranty. That's the big part of it. Now, on the front end, that's a smoking good deal. You know, if no matter how you look at it, sub $3,000 for what is in essence, realistically, 80 horsepower, not necessarily a bad thing. I know that they're advertising somewhere in there 100 horsepower, but this is shown to be 885. not 907. So I'll take that number and I'll agree with it. I'm sure you could probably eke a little bit more out of it on race gas. The thing is that there's a Brazilian different race gases out there, from ethanol added, non-ethanol fuels, and then everything else under the sun, all the different exotic methanol, ethanol type situations. So we're only going to be talking about the gasoline, the familiar to your engine E10 upgraded fuels, which would be Sunoco 260 GT, which is a 10% ethanol, high octane base gasoline blend that it's an E10 just like the pump gas. It just has a higher ethanol content. I'm sorry, a higher octane with the same ethanol content. Caught myself slipping there for a minute. So let me visit with you guys real quick. Let's see. Rich is saying, I noticed now that my Hellcat is making almost 9 bills to the wheels, that I definitely need to let it cool off between runs now a lot more. I'm thinking that an inner chiller is definitely needed now. I don't know that an inner chiller will help you a little bit. Definitely get the Taser with the cool down feature. I highly recommend it for in between runs. Only run that thing for 10 to 12 minutes though at a time. Heavy Mike's saying, I just took a tiptoe through the daisies on the jailbreak option list and pricing. Seems to me that it's another money grab for not much other than to be able to have a one out of one build car. A lot of people have been being a bit critical of the jailbreak, and I look at the jailbreak as a neat options list. I like that you can option a lot of different things with that car. I too was going in there and playing around with it. There's some neat things on that jailbreak setup. I like the idea of being able to change your brake calipers. I recently did the brake calipers on Chandelier, and I am elated with the results. I was so tired of having the Valentine's Day color combination. My calipers were starting to fade, and the weird thing is if you don't really drive your car a lot, you're not beating on it, you're not wowing the thing from obnoxious speeds like I have been known to do on a regular basis, then your finish is probably going to be fine. My calipers had been beaten up pretty good, rock chips, things like that. Nothing that you would notice unless you're the guy that is washing the car. But the main thing was that the calipers were just fading. The color was getting lighter, and instead of being a dark red like they were when the car was practically new, they were getting lighter and lighter and lighter, and it was clashing badly. I mean, I would look at the car from certain angles, or if the car was in the shop, not direct sunlight or anything like that on the car, it was like, oh, yeah, I'll live with it. But outside, especially in the evening when the red line red starts to color shift, that's when it was real noticeable. And so I was like, nope, not going to have this. So they're black now, matte black, and I'm real happy with that. But anyway, that's one of the things I like about it. You can get a different caliper color. If you don't like the way that red looks with your gold dust, then you can go with black or yellow or whatever you like. What's funny is that when I was playing with the website on the build your own for the jailbreak, I think I must have jumped like right into it right when they released that, because they've actually made some changes to it. At least seems to me like they made some changes to it, because initially at one point you couldn't add the rear seat delete, which to me is a mandatory option with that car. And about the only real difference between the jailbreak and in anything else is just the options that you can get with it. So one of the weird things though, that I did notice is that you cannot get the side stripes, the fender livery, if you will. You can't get that with the blackout option for the roof, trunk, and the hood. which I thought was kind of weird. I'm pretty sure that that could be a dealer. You could probably tweak that at the dealer. They're not going to let you get out of there if you, that's not going to kill a deal, I'm sure. But just thought that was weird. You can't put that in the build your own. If you just wanted to decal the whole top of the thing, which I was looking to try to build one around an F8 green Jailbreak, and it wasn't going to let me. So anyway, that was one of the other things that I noticed along the way. Scatback 392 is asking, could an exhaust leak cause a tuning issue? Like you would not believe, my brother. Yes. In fact, one of my basically pre-work checklists was exhaust leaks, especially if the car had long tube headers, because what will happen is you will get oxygen reverbing. So when you have the pressure wave go through, if there's a exhaust leak, you get this pressure wave go through and there's a negative pressure that reverberates ambient air back into the exhaust, and it will drive an O2 sensor freaking crazy. And so you would have one side that might be throwing a ton of fuel at the car, and it might be throwing like 20%. It's just not outside of what the computer can adjust for, but it's really leaning heavy on that one side, and it's going real rich because it thinks that that side is real lean for whatever reason. And, but yeah, no, it will absolutely cause a problem if you have an exhaust leak. Madera saying he'd like to build a hot rod with an old American inline six, like a 300 Ford. That was actually a really popular setup, or an American big block, or a big block GM V6, which is the 5-liter V6. Now, funny to see the looks on people's faces when they open the hood and they see a 6. A lot of folks did back in the day. No, listen, there was the 6-shooter club and all that kind of stuff. A lot of guys would build those, and it wasn't like they were, going out to try to set any land speed records or anything like that. These are just guys that like 6 cylinders and like to do something a little bit different. So, but the Ford inline 6, interesting. I don't want to get too far off topic, but that Ford inline 6 is a really, really good setup. So, can be a lot of fun. Him and Mike saying, thanks, you got it. So, getting back to this, oh, by the way, so getting back to the stage kits, what's the bump and boost, right? So we didn't even talk about that. I've been over here talking about everything, air charges and all this blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean anything if you don't know what I'm talking about, but the boost numbers. So basically it's going to add a couple of pounds of boost to the thing. Realistically on race gas, that would be about right if you're going to throw some more timing at it. I mean, 5 degrees would be pretty aggressive, but that would be falling right in line with what a solid race gas tune would give you. Yeah, I could see an extra 30 or an extra 80 odd horsepower out of that reliably, but in the short term, because one of the things you're going to have to remember is that, again, these have to be warrantable. So in much the same way as the Roush tunes are, now remember the Roush stages where you could get, remember early on it was 650 horsepower, 707 horsepower for 45 grand. Later options would get you maybe a little bit more than that. What you have to remember is, just like with those tunes, these tunes are still going to employ all of the heat nannies, all of the knock sensor sensitivity, all of the catalytic converter over temp protection. All of that is still going to be in play. So yes, it will make that amount of power. And for the guys that are just going out and playing around with their car, they want to say, yeah, man, it's a stage 2 Mopar direct connection, supporting my Mopar brethren with this thing. Love it. Only cost me like $2,800. Easy peasy. Still has a warranty. Lots of things to brag about, while you're at the burger joint. takes his buddies for rides. You can hear the blower screaming its head off, and it's just, tits and milkshakes for everybody. But the fact of the matter is that at about half track, what you're going to notice is the car is really going to start to lean over a little bit, and going through the traps on the back half of the traps, because they're going to have to do something with these cars. Guys are going to be taking them to the drag strip. They've got to do some heat management. The torque management on the heat side is going to have to be adjusted to get the thing to the end of the quarter mile. But as long as that's done, the car's going to run a pretty solid time. I would guess 960s, 970s on a drag pack should not be too much of an issue if it's done the right way. And look, I've got experience with these cars, not as much as some guys, but I do have a lot of experience driving them. I can tell you that at the drag strip, and a lot of experience early on. And I can tell you that after the teething is done with these things, they're a lot of fun to drive, and you don't have to throw a lot of pulley at them to get a solid number. So where does that put this car in play? Well, it's not going to be a 950 car. That's really not what you're looking at. To get 950s realistically out of a Redeye, you're looking at like a 275, 285 upper on corn. And that's a real, actually, I'm being honest, that is an extremely durable 960 car. That's a car that you literally could run 960s with in a lot of different density altitude conditions. You would absolutely be deep into the nines and could do it for years and years and years and years and years with good maintenance. Your kids and your grandkids will be taking this thing down the drag strip. So that's kind of the cool thing about this type of a package, keeping it still within what I would consider to be the recipe, which is something that is hard for the aftermarket to do. The aftermarket has a nasty habit of trying to throw the kitchen sink at something and hopefully nothing breaks. In this case, a 317 foot braking on a race gas tune will put you in the 983 range, somewhere right in there, at about 144 miles an hour. You'll be in really good company. You will not be embarrassed. In other words, you are very well armed, even with a neutered, I put that in air quotes. Let me rephrase that. A warranty-friendly calibration. You'll be in really good company with that type of a setup. Plus, again, you keep your warranty, which is, for most guys, more important than having some big number. The guys that are taking their cars to the drag strip a lot, this is a very viable option. And again, at less than $3,000, you're getting a combination that, well, I mean, you can get the thing done at the dealership. You pick your car up, it's all done there. It's finished. You don't have to worry about it. Plus, you've got a stage kit car. So you heard that. As you all know, Z05 Studios is located very near Velocito. And because of that, you'll get some guys that especially if they know that I'm filming, they'll run by here and pipe it up when they're on their way out to make some hits. Tonight, I probably would say is not the best night to make some hits. That's probably just somebody buzzing around. But yeah, they know if the light's on, it's going to be fun. So, Scatback 392 saying, okay, thanks. Probably my issue. It's been a pain to tune after my cam. Yep, that's exactly what it is. Check out your short-term fuel trims. If actually reset your adaptives. Check out your short-term fuel trims. If you've got one side that is spiked, that's what it is. Feel up in and around the collector. If you feel a little, that's That's all it takes to wreck shop on those things. Rich is saying, silly question, but my Hellcat is the same color as yours, the fastest color, and I want to get my hood wrapped in black. Good idea. Would that make the engine bay get hotter because black absorbs heat? Not at all. You've got a 2.4 liter scavenger pump sitting right on top of your engine that generates all the heat it needs. Don't worry about it whatsoever. Black cars don't have an issue. Rich saying, thumbs up, Pete, for all this good info. Yes, please. Thumbs up. Hit that like button. Give the bell the people's elbow. Everything you can helps me out a ton. More than you guys know, as a matter of fact. When it comes to the algorithms and things that help the channel to grow and to get to more people, the more likes, the better. The more shares, the better. The more the everything, the better that it is. So that's what helps the most. It's kind of funny too, because a lot of YouTubers have been saying, man, everything's down. Everything's, it's just the way that the algorithm works, man. I don't know. I tell you, I ain't getting paid like I used to be. But again, it's just the algorithm and how things go out into the world somehow. I don't know. Math, I think, has something to do with that. So we were talking about timing values. So let's look at something real quickly. I want to show you guys, again, the differences in the wide open throttle timing table for the Redeye versus the Demon Crate. So let me get that pulled up here real quickly. We're going to get into the high octane side of things. Here we go. So to give you guys an idea, even if they threw 5 degrees of timing at the Redeye tune just in general, and maybe that's what they're going to do, based on what the literature, at least what I was seeing, was showing. And that's I've seen that from a couple of different sources too, guys. So just keep that in mind. But I'm going to flag one area for you. And again, this is going to be in an area that will equate to like 137 is going to be around 11 pounds of boost-ish. 175 is around 14 pounds of boost. So take a look at those. Those are the numbers that the Demon Crate PCM, those are the timing values that is showing that the Demon Crate PCM is greater than. That's what the negative means in this case, that the Demon Crate motor has that many more degrees of timing in those particular cells. So as you can see, 5 degrees of timing really won't get you to where some of those values are, which are 8 degrees more, 7.5 degrees, 6.5, in some cases at 5, some cases 4.5. So it's not a batch statement to say that there are 5 degrees of timing thrown everywhere. That could potentially get you into some low-speed spark knock issues, which quite frankly causes more problems in most situations than wide open throttle, high RPM scenarios, unless you're just over revving the hell out of it. So, what does or what will that tune look like? I'm really not sure. I'm still not understanding what that 5 degrees of timing thing meant. You'd have to just have the handheld and have it basically in that particular frame to see what exactly that's talking about. But I know that with my Trinity, which is the kit, looks like it comes with a Trinity. What it looks like is I know that I can add timing, and it's a global timing adder with the Trinity, and I think it did go to 5 degrees. It's been a while since I've even messed with it. I used to like to use it for data logging, but now that HP Tuners is so much, that was from years ago, and HP Tuners is so far advanced from their data logging with that Trinity. I mean, it's cool to just plug in and read a knock sensor, knock retard, but I'm really more interested in knock sensor voltage than I am in the actual knock retard, because that can change and I know what I'm looking for with knock sensor voltage. In other words, it's the voltage that matters, not the knock retard, because the knock retard is tied to the voltage. All right, let me check back in with you guys. Sovereign saying, "Sup, B? Sup, Sovereign?" Cody saying, "What's going on, B? What's up, Cody? I know the 5.7 is restricted from the factory, but what if Dodge didn't restrict it and would give it options from a gear change to actually factory tune upgrade?" So they kind of did. You had your scat packages, and this is something that goes back a few years, but and they may still do it. I frankly have not been keeping up with it, primarily because, well, the scat packages were kind of pricey, to be honest, and they were limited to the 5.7. So where the 5.7 needs help is in the exhaust. It's got a log exhaust manifold, which is not going to do it a whole lot of good. Definitely needs something there. Like, I mean, 392/Hellcat manifolds would work wonders for that car, along with a good exhaust. Now that the exhaust is available for the thing, the 2 3/4 inch exhaust, it's actually, I mean, you talk about a good sounding car, man. 5.7 with that exhaust sounds good. I would highly recommend putting some type of a 392 manifold on the thing. But how much does it pick up? I don't know, 10, 12 horsepower, but it basically picks up everywhere. Don't worry about peak numbers. Peak numbers are not what you're worried about. It's the power under the curve. Anyway, at one point in time, and maybe still do, the scat packages where you could get just a tune, you could get a cam, you could get the SRT exhaust, you could get all of that for it. Again, it was pricey, but it was pretty cool that you could get that through Dodge. But they never did anything with the 392. Ever. Nothing. Only a calibration change. And this is the funny thing. This is one of the things that I'm still trying to wrap my head around a little bit. The 2019 operating system is really, really, really good. And not that I'm going to trade in Chandelier. By the way, car, again, loving the way she looks now. The performance spoiler with the black calipers, the whole bit, 2 thumbs up. Couldn't be happier. In fact, pictures don't do the car justice. It looks like a Hot Wheels car. And I don't understand what my phone is doing. When I take a picture, like some angles, it looks right. But from a dead side view, it's like, what are you doing with the rims on this thing? I swear it's like they swell up. I don't know. Anyway, rant over it. I love the way the car looks, and if you guys are thinking about doing that performance spoiler for your 2015, 16, 17, 18, especially for your 15, 16, and maybe into the 17s, but primarily 15, 16. If you're thinking about doing it, I would, and you like the look of it, but you're like, yeah, but it's a little bit pricey, and I don't know, a little bit on the fence. Do it. Do it and have a body, like an auto body place. Do it. If you don't feel comfortable doing it yourself, which listen, man, I completely understand. If I wasn't so hands-on with my stuff, I'd be using that green wrench also. Do it just for the camera upgrade. My camera, I don't know what happened. That thing was getting cataracts or something, because it is a completely different camera. Just the clarity and how good it looks out the back of that car in all lighting conditions. It's not just in good light, it's in poor lighting conditions. It's if it's just gross outside or whatever, it doesn't matter. The camera is so much better with that upgraded spoiler that I would argue that it's worth it just for the camera upgrade. So I know that there's some less expensive options out there. Some of them look just like the factory kit. I get that. I think those spoilers could be factory spoilers just without the upgraded camera, because you have to transplant your camera, I think, into those kits. I don't care if you're saving $200. I would save up the extra $200 and get the actual Mopar kit. Hands down, far and away better. Riff's checking in with Sovereign. Rob's checking in saying just joining in, but think they will use the Diablo tuner. No, they are using the Diablo tuner. 100% it's a Trinity. Let's see. Riv saying, I heard they have their own version or something like the Diablo tuner when it comes to their stage kits. They are working in conjunction with them on that. Believe me, Dodge did not develop that. They saw what Diablo was doing, and it makes sense. Okay, because look, here's the thing. I have a laptop, and I cannot hold software in my hand, even though I kind of am holding software in my hand when I'm holding my laptop in my hand with the software on it. You know what I'm talking about. But guys, when they buy this kind of stuff, they don't want to have the laptop to do all of this. They need a gadget. You have to have a gadget that you can press buttons on and that you can keep in your glove compartment to where you can make quick changes in the tune. And that's really where the Trinity comes into play. That little gizmo is really good for that. So I can't say anything bad about it. And I understand that you have to have something to give somebody these tunes on. And it's that Trinity is the way to go. Plus, again, you've got to be able to switch back and forth. If you get a stage 2 or a stage 1, you've got to be able to either have the factory tune or your stage 1 tune in, or for the stage 2, if you want to have high octane, you've got to have some kind of tchotchke to be able to do that. So, let's get into the difference. So I can show you guys something here, the difference between a Redeye tune and a Hellcat tune, so you can get an idea for the difference in timing based on air charge. So let me X out of this. Let me do the file open. Go to my stock Hellcat tune. Well, we can just do this. We'll do a stock Redeye tune. And we will also have a look at the stock Hellcat tune. This will be Revlon's stock read file. Now, this is going to be a little bit confusing, so I'm going to have to walk you through this. And the reason why I say it's going to be a little bit confusing is the air charge values are different. Because the Redeye has a higher boost number, it has a higher air charge number. So what you'll notice, hold on there. What you'll notice with a stock Hellcat tune is right there where the little clicker is. See where it says air charge, and that only goes to 1.5. That's grams of air per second. And it revs out. It'll basically target out to 6,200 RPM. Hopefully that helps right there. Redeye is going to be a little bit different. By the way, some of the new operating systems for the Hellcat will take that, I think, out a little bit further, but it's the same for what we're talking about. Your Redeye, as you can see, we'll drag that down to 1.75 grams per second. And your RPM out here will drag out to 6,400 RPM. So we're going to have to show some areas that are a little bit off, and to show you going back and forth is a little bit odd. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tell you at approximate air charges what the difference is in timing. So we're going to take a look at max RPM at basically the max value of boost for the Hellcat. And that would be at 15. No, it would not be. That would be at... Okay. That would be at 1.5 grams per second air charge. At 6,200 RPM is at 15 degrees of timing. And again, I need to clarify that every one of these cells is an amount of timing that I just highlighted. And every one of those cells, the timing value is based on air charge. I can assure you that if you're at 15 degrees of timing at 6,200 RPM, you have blown way past your air charge in grams. Oh, Greg, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Saying, thanks for the explanation of these tunes. I'll be happy if the 17 Hellcat gets one. Rock on B. Thank you so very much. It's very generous of you, man. Thank you. So getting back to the explanation, thank you very much. So you're looking at 15 degrees of timing at an air charge that realistically you're really probably never going to see, but you have to accommodate that and account for it in the tune, interpolate, if you will. So 15 degrees of timing, if you go and you look at what is in essence the same thing, 6,200 RPM, and again, this is going to be an interpolation. At 6,300 RPM, it's at 14 degrees of timing at 1.52. The reality is that it is coming down into 14 degrees of timing from 15. But the main difference when you look at this is that that is at 14 degrees of timing on its way. I mean, it's just hemorrhaging timing as it's building boost at that same RPM. And actually, it's at 14 degrees of timing coming down from 15 at 6,300 RPM, which means that if you interpolate that backwards, it's actually probably going to be somewhere closer to around 13 and, well, it's going to be 13 and change, probably 13.0. And what I've done here is I have highlighted that area. In fact, I'm going to highlight the whole row and I'm going to stop at 6,300 RPM. And you can see here, we were initially talking about 1.5. We're at 1.52, which is extremely close. And I ran that number out to 6,300 RPM, which is our closest number to 62. As you can see, it's at 14, coming up from 12.5. And so the real number is going to be somewhere at that RPM. If you were to data log the car, you would find that that's somewhere around 13.5 degrees of timing. Again, that is less than the 15 that you're looking at for the commanded number at that same RPM and air charge. To give you an idea across the board, you're looking at a difference of about 3 degrees of timing, really no matter how you cut it. And if you look, and you would obviously expect this, all the colors that are in pink are values that are greater than the Redeye tune. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't go as deep into the air charge values. The ones in blue are actually where the Hellcat has less timing. But again, those are areas where as that air charge increases on the launch, so to speak, the Hellcat will just carry more timing through the launch and through the pass. But I wanted to bring you guys up to speed with this because, you know, a lot of folks think, well, you know, the car's making, talking about the Hellcat versus the Redeye is making all this more power than the Hellcat. And you can see where the Hellcat is making a couple of pounds less boost, but it's got a significant amount more timing in the car, just in general, much less, you know, with any of the heat nannies that would kick in. That can be, you know, that can even drag more timing out of that Redeye, which is, again, something that we haven't even talked about, are the heat nannies, cat overtemps, and things like that. Cat overtemp doesn't pull timing, by the way, guys. It just throws fuel at the thing. So if you're throwing fuel at it already, obviously you're going to mess around with that cat over temp a little bit. There's some scalers and other things you can do with that to chill that out a little bit. And for the guys that are throwing a lot of fuel at the cars anyway, the cat over temp actually doesn't really get as hot as it does with the factory fueling. So cheers on that. Not to mention a little bit more timing will cool it off as well. So a little bit more timing, a little bit more fuel, believe it or not, will actually cool off the catalytic converters. As a matter of fact, there is a thermal table that is a couple of degrees over the stock wide open throttle table that is there to accommodate when the thing just starts throwing like 10-to-1 AFR at the thing, that you'll at least maintain fueling. You think, why don't you just put that timing table in the normal timing table? Well, hold on there, buddy, because it's only there to accommodate extremely rich conditions. The idea is to where you don't have too high of an EGT. With a very rich mixture can come higher EGTs, and that can actually sting your exhaust valves. Even though they are sodium filled, you can still sting them. So again, I just wanted to clarify some of that, kind of let you guys in on. This is stuff you guys really don't get a chance to see too often. You don't get a chance to see the tunes and see some of the timing tables and really get a chance to see into what really makes these cars tick, literally what makes them tick. And I figured I would share some of this with you because it's kind of cool stuff. Fueling, and there's so much to this. I mean, the amount of, oh, by the way, well, it doesn't really show you much, only to show that there's no difference. So, a stock Redeye. So getting back to the knock sensor thing, I do want to bring this to you as well. You see where it says window end? I've got the little pointer here. That doesn't mean anything for what we're going to be talking about, but see how it's like a light green compared to everything else being blue? What that means is that is a table that is different. There's some difference in there. It could be drastic. It could be extremely minor. It typically with filters and things like that, it's just the fact that one's a little bit different. There could be lookup tables in the transmission. A lot of that it doesn't really matter. What I want you to notice and keep in mind, this is a stock Redeye tune versus a stock Hellcat tune. And I want you to notice that under where it says knock threshold, right there, right in the middle, right there, that's all of your knock sensor sensitivities. Notice that those are all blue. That means that they are identical. There are no differences in there whatsoever. I also want to show you something else, which is, I don't know if it's scary or what. Let's see here. So the other thing that I wanted to show you was the difference. Remember, I had shown you guys the difference when you do the compare file where it'll show the red or the blue or anything like that. And if there's no difference, then you would see zeros across the board. Well, as we had shown, I want to talk about fueling now so you guys can get an idea what the difference is there. If you see where the pointer is here, the air charge, this is in power enrichment, which is to say that is your fueling. That's wide open throttle right there. See how it's green? Well, we just talked about green means it's different. So there's something different with the fueling, right? No, there's not. The difference is in RPM. Remember when we were talking about the timing tables, the Hellcat ran out to 6,200 RPM and the Redeye went out to 6,500 RPM. That's the only difference. So if I put this timing pointer here and show it to you, see how it's 6496? That's 6,500. So you can compare that to the 6208 of the Hellcat right there. And notice all those 0110 numbers. That's actually your fuel adder. And it's actually, you don't read it in air fuel, you read it in fuel air. So you literally have to switch your brain around backwards. And when we compare those on the compare file, they're all coming up flat zeros across the board. So literally the exact same fueling, exact same fuel air ratio being commanded between the two vehicles, between the two operating systems in those vehicles. Now, there's a ton of little differences. There's a ton of differences that just don't mean anything. There's some differences that I still don't get. But anyway, long story short, that'll kind of walk you guys through what some of the differences are. And again, to kind of bring you into the fold, when I say that, well, maybe they are adding 5 degrees of timing, you can look at that and go, well, okay, if they are, we've already discussed what the crate timing values were. And that was, you know, somebody's having fun. What those crate values were. And again, you know, you're looking at, you know, 3, 4, 5 degrees of timing here and there across the board over what the stock values were. So, you know, I would assume that it's going to be somewhere in that range. It's going to look a lot like the Demon. So again, when you see the 5 degrees of timing thing, you guys are already kind of schooled up on, well, yeah, but if it's 5 degrees of timing and it's making 800 and whatever 5 horsepower, that's all well and good. But, you know, what we're really looking at is, you know, how are we getting to this 885? And I don't know that 5 degrees of timing would get you there when the Demon is rated at less and is commanding more timing. So, you know, just some things to think about. One of the things I can tell you from a warrantability standpoint, you know, you might ask, well, what happens if you run 93 octane with your 100 octane button being pressed? Well, there's no sensor in this. It's not going to be the same as what the Demon is, where it's actually integrated into the operating system. A couple of checks and balances working there. You're not going to get that level, but I can tell you that with the knock sensors not being touched, if you put 93 octane in this car in the high octane mode, it will be ripping timing out of this thing like you would never believe. I mean, you'd be down 6, 7, 8, 9 degrees of timing. I can promise you that. To give you guys an idea, in case you've never done a data log on one of these supercharged applications, on 93 octane, it is absolutely not uncommon. So it is very common to see knock retard numbers in the 2 degrees, sometimes even as much as 3 degrees. If you've got like a funky tank of gas, could even creep into 3 and change. That is on stock timing with stock fueling. Throw a significant amount of fuel at it, you can eliminate almost all of the knock sensor issues with knock sensor adjustment, but I would obviously be throwing some fuel at it as well. I mean, you pick up power with fuel with these things. Go ahead and give it some gas. And even with that, yes, there's extra noise because these things are noisy and the knock sensors are skittish in these cars. But I have been able to repeatedly be able to tell the difference in fuel quality, even with my knock sensors being somewhat more numb than others may be. They're still very much in the game. It's just a little bit more appropriate with where they're at. And if I start seeing knock retard with my car, it is absolutely a fuel quality issue. I mean, my settings are going, okay, yeah, that's still not good. So, and I've had mine wide open in real good air and regular air and whatever, and not had knock retard and not had knock sensor voltage that would have triggered me to go, oh, maybe that is something. No. And to that point, real knock, some guys will argue, a lot of guys will try to set their knock sensor voltage to like 3 volts and anything above 3 volts is probably real. Anything above 3 volts might be real. I've even heard as high as 4 volts, but I keep mine fairly still low because I don't want mine to get to 3 volts. If it sees something at 3 volts, I want it to start yanking timing, and it does. And it did when I had that crap tank of gas that I had. Oh, well, I blew right past some of this. Let's see. Let me get back up here, guys. Let's see. Cody's saying, wouldn't mind using the Diablo tuner. He's not well versed in HP. Yeah, the Diablo Trinity is real easy to navigate. You wouldn't have any problem with it at all, I promise. Rip is saying, speaking of performance spoiler, how much do you think it would help me in the quarter mile with my Hellcat the way it is now at 9 bills? Man, I don't know that it would. I did it more for the looks than anything else. I just really liked the way that it looked, and I really wanted a new camera, so it kind of killed two birds with one stone. Will it help any at all? I don't know. It does set the spoiler back a little bit, and the angle is a little bit shallower. So there may be some coefficient of drag that it helps you to capture. I wouldn't do it for I would do it way more for the aesthetic than I would for any performance gain. Cody's saying, so the difference between a Redeye and a regular Hellcat is the pulley and tune. No, the pulley is the same and the tune is completely different because the supercharger is significantly different. And along with that, the Redeye has a little bit more aggressive camshaft and significantly better pistons, but better is only better in the eyes of a spec sheet. A Hellcat rotating assembly will handle anything you want to throw at it, that you would normally consider to be a lot. That stock Hellcat short block will take a lot more than what you probably think is a lot on the street. Like on E85, for example, they're both at their functional limit for 93 octane, but it's the fuel that's the problem, not the short block at all. Rip's saying 2015 Hellcat, by the way, pretty much the same as yours. Color, all have the Laguna sepia interior. Oh, cool. It's got the sepia. That's a nice color. Shane's checking in. Barry, Alabama. I like it. Hashtag Team Mopar. Very much so, sir. Thank you for checking in, man. Thank you. Devin's asking, what do you think about Mopar going away from Hemis and going all electric soon? Well, look, here's the thing, man. We've reached the limits of what pump gasoline will give you. 93 octane is literally at its functional limit. The Hellcat is just shy of that functional limit. The Redeye is just over that functional limit. And so, and I see that in the tune. I see that in how the Redeye will hemorrhage in timing. So let me get back to my spark tables, go to my advanced, go to watt, base. To give you an example, the Redeye in areas at like 13, 14 degrees of timing. I'm sorry, boy, talk about got ahead of myself. The Redeye in areas where y'all would normally see 13, 14 degrees of timing, the Redeye is checking in at 9.5, 10 degrees, 11 degrees. The closest it gets is about 6,300 RPM at what would amount to be about 13.5 degrees of pounds of boost, 11 degrees of timing. The reason why it's doing that is because it has to hedge the tune against fuel quality. Not all 93 octane is the same, much less 91 octane, which is what this tune has to be able to accommodate, as well as the timing tables, what it's commanding. It also has a lot of heat nannies and knock sensors, which have a hair trigger. So there's a lot of that going on here, and all of that is done in an effort to keep that internal combustion engine alive. What we have seen is that in the world of the internet and in the world of public opinion, it's the final bottom number that makes all the difference in the world in terms of clout. And when you look at the Tesla Model S Plaid, when you start to look at what all of these electric vehicles, much less the Tesla Model S Plaid, let's look at the Model 3, the Model Y Performance, whatever, just pick something out there. All of those vehicles are also kind of one-trick ponies. The Taycan handles amazing, and there's a lot to be said about the e-tron, which is freaking sick to death looking. And even though it's the slowest of the three, it's still a freaking 10-second car. It's hard to argue against the prevailing wind that EVs are going to be the way to go in terms of just flat out going fast in a straight line. That's what these cars are meant for. That's what the brand is built around. And quite honestly, they're getting beaten at their own game by a car that runs on electrons as opposed to gasoline. So I'm not surprised that they're going this route. And to be fair, it is wicked, crazy, hella bananas easier to warranty high horsepower electric vehicles than it ever could possibly be to warranty high performance, high power internal combustion engines. Look, you want 1,000 horsepower, that's great. We can give you 1,200 horsepower and you can fill her up in your garage. There's a lot to be said for that. Plus, the traction control options are literally on a different stratosphere with EVs. You can make an EV do stuff that is seemingly against the laws of physics. And because it is electric, reaction times for these systems are improved dramatically. So, what direction do you go? Well, if you want to stay on top of the performance scene, and numbers, again, is what we're talking about here because that's all the internet will seemingly allow us to talk about, then that is the direction that you have to go to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. But I like my internal combustion stuff because it's fun, because I understand it, and I understand electric stuff really well as well. And I still like the internal combustion because there is the theater behind it. But I understand that the reality of the situation dictates that EVs are going to be the way that you go. You simply cannot displacement this problem away. You cannot turbo this problem away. Not in the way that you would think anyway on pump gasoline. Look, if Teslas and Taycans and e-trons have proven anything to us, is that in the world of one-trick pony, the EV is king of that little mountain. So yes, and I say little mountain because that's not every aspect of a driving experience. There's the sound, there's the smells, there's the everything that comes with it. It's just going to have to get used to a sound of an electric motor and the sound of tires as opposed to the sound of exhaust, unfortunately. Cody's asking, so for tuning in general, would you want to start out super rich and lean it out, or would you start out lean and add more fuel? Neither. You have an understood targeted fuel air ratio or air fuel ratio, whichever language that you're speaking, and you never start out super rich ever. That's actually a really bad way to go. You can foul plugs, you can wash out cylinders. There's all kinds of really bad things that come from running really rich, especially if you hit the engine really hard when it doesn't have a lot of temperature in it. Cylinders aren't expanded all the way into the cylinder. You get fuel washing past the rings, tears up cylinder walls, contaminates the oil with gasoline. Running it lean, on the other hand, obviously is not a good idea either. That can promote pre-ignition because of high cylinder temperatures, because there's not enough fuel mass to absorb any of the heat. And that, obviously, you guys know what happens with pre-ignition. So the way that you would tie all of this together is naturally aspirated engines. You're going to target 12.0 just to get you up and running and just to get you started at wide open throttle and in power and rich mode. In other words, you're rolling into the throttle, but you're not at wide open throttle, but you are accelerating with a load. 12.0 is pretty good with that. You're going to be hanging the thing around peak torque anyway, so keep the temperatures low. wide open throttle, you may see it lean out just a little bit to like 12.5 or whatever. I just don't like to see leaner than 13.0. Supercharged or any type of forced induction, doesn't matter what it is, you're looking at somewhere around 11.5 to 11.7. That's the sweet spot for keeping everything nice and cool and keeping everything basically consistent in terms of making power and making sure you've got enough fuel to feed the thing. So that's what you're going to be looking at as far as cruise. Some guys swear by lean cruise, which is like 15.0. I don't really care. You know, rich cruise, which is like 13.5, which is what a lot of the old school carburetor guys like. I usually will make sure all factory cars target 14.7. That's their equivalent lambda number. That's what they're going to cover. But no, you never want to start out rich and you never want to start out lean. You want to start out with tables that are put together to make sure that you have a target air fuel for what you're doing. And you're going to start out basically just real light with the car. Get your fuel trims sorted out. You're going to be able to roll into the throttle. If you're seeing everything basically reacting the way that you've set it up to, then you're going to really start showering down on it and putting it into higher loads and load testing it at that point. But no, you never, ever start out on one spectrum or another. If you start out and you are on one spectrum or another, that can tell you some things as well. Let's say that you start out and you're trying to throw it together and you're hitting everything rich. You may not notice that, again, an exhaust leak can have one side going real rich. If you've already started off real rich and you're not seeing maybe a huge difference between the two, could be an issue there that you don't know about. So again, anything outside of the acceptable range is a problem. Too rich is a big problem. Too lean is a big problem. You need to be right there in the middle. Ken, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Saying thank you for sharing your knowledge. We'll be reaching out to Pipes Performance for my tune when the time comes. Good idea. They will get you very well taken care of. But thank you very much for the contribution, man. Appreciate that. Ripped is saying a bit behind in the video here, but I wanted to say again how well the HP Tuner app for the iPhone works, or for the phone works. Very cool. Very much like the Diablo for your phone. Cool. I haven't messed with it yet. Saying your phone just connects to the HP Tuner through the HP Tuner app using the Bluetooth. And so far it works really good without the need to have a laptop at all times. That's actually pretty cool. I don't know that I could ever not have my laptop though. I'm just kind of old school that way. Not that that's a good thing or like a badge of honor. I just can't get off the laptop teat, I guess. Cody's asking, does this mean that the 5.7 will get its shot to continue what the 6.2 did? Probably not. Not going into the next platform. Oh, Sovereign saying also with regenerative braking, your brake pads need to be changed less. That's very true. Sovereign saying no explosions is less exciting. That's true until a speed controller flames up and then you've got a whole lot of excitement going on. Can say EVs are unfairly consistent in bracket racing. No DA issues. True, but they do have to deal with that drop in voltage, which doesn't really seem to affect them for a while. Shane saying, I will never time or tune a vehicle due to visual challenges, but I enjoy the heck out of this program. Electric may be coming soon, but nothing sounds sweeter than a 5.7 in passing gear. They do sound good. And again, Ken, thank you, buddy. Shift saying, can we see benefits to a board stock throttle body on a stock tune 392, or will it hurt the car without the tune, horsepower and air fuel? It won't. Oh, got the arm flex. Yeah. It won't hurt anything. One of the things you got to remember though is that without a ported throat to that 6.4 manifold, a ported throttle body won't do you a lot of good. You really need to do those basically in concert. The amount that will help will be directly associated with how jacked up your runners are. Some intakes look beautiful. Some of them are Not good. So, and you don't know until you remove them. Cody's saying, okay, so in a sense, whatever the factory tune is, tweak it and improve it slowly and add one or the other or both. Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're gonna, you know, I've had cars on the dyno, Cody, and this is no joke. I've had cars on the dyno, and it's been one of those nights, and I'm just going, God, I got to make another hit with this thing, and I will do timing sweeps, or I would do timing sweeps, just to see if there was any power somewhere in the thing. Did it with a Demon, did it with Quick Break's car, just trying to find where I can get power. And sometimes add a little bit of fuel, nothing. Add more fuel, nothing. Throw the kitchen sink at it for fuel, nothing. Put it back where you found it. Timing, oh, nothing. Okay, timing and fuel, something, yay, we found it. So it's, yeah, it's little baby steps. Riff, thank you very much, buddy. I appreciate that very much. Didn't have a question, but thank you, buddy. Cody's saying, okay, so in a sense, whatever the fact, oh, sorry, I just read that one. Let's see. Riff saying, I saw a good scientific video that explained that if they went with ethanol-based cars, that it would actually be better for the environment right now than going with full electric because the batteries. I would believe that. Brazil would actually be agreeing with you as well. Pretty much everything in Brazil runs on E100 or E85. They're saying at least for a certain amount of time because we know they're going to have to go full electric sooner or later. I don't know. They'll stick with their sustainability stuff. But well, cool. Well, guys, I got to wake up with the Amish in the morning, so I've got to wrap this up. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for hanging out with me. Hopefully, I helped y'all out a little bit, got you a little bit more informed with those stage kits from Direct Connection, and kind of got you some background so you can work with that, a little bit more of a little different perspective on that for you as well. But with that, again, thank each and every one of you guys. Would not do this without you. Love each and every one of you guys. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. Get out there and do something cool for somebody. And Ray, miss you, love you, brother. And with that, that is a wrap. Y'all have a great week. Adios.